DJ kind of
Yeah,
voice.
you do. You have a good radio DJ voice.
106.7. We are here with True Classic, and we are on the Unit Economics Podcast.
You grew your business to over 250 million in revenue in like no time, lickety split.
Yeah.
When did the lawsuits start happening?
Because everyone told me, follow your passion.
Yeah.
Follow what you're good at. Do what you're good at. Little did I know they were leading me down a line of debt that I could never climb out of because I followed my quote unquote passion. Thanks a lot, guys. And I didn't really realize at the time how significant it was compared to the landscape until people on the outside started telling me. I started looking at the 100 million in 2 years and going, that's just never been done. Like it's just such an anomaly, especially bootstrapped and profitable. That's a whole nother caveat that makes it even more impressive. So I was just operating and trying to build the best business I could for the people and the customers and the employees for like a decade. And it wasn't filling my bucket at all. Like it just wasn't fulfilling. And then I kept thinking, I'm watching all these consumer products and I'm just thinking like, God, they're missing the boat there. God, they're missing up over here. Why aren't they doing that? And I just kept thinking I could do it better. I could do it better. I could do it better. And then I was like, let me just put my money where my mouth is and actually go and do it. And that was the genesis of True Classic.
Incredible things about this. But the two things that stand out to me are, one, you entered a category that most people would be like terrified of. It's kind of like liquid death doing water, right? It's like, okay, so I'm going to sell something that's kind of the most challenging thing out there in my category. And then two, I'm going to do it at this time where paid advertising is like absolutely not what it was like, 3 years prior. And you did that with just like the utmost confidence. Great.
And so I shined a light on it and the TAM was enormous. It was much larger than I realized. I thought this was going to be like a 5 million a year business when I first started it. And then within the first couple months, my co-founders and I were sitting around and all our phones were dinging, that Shopify cash register ding that everyone gets in the beginning. And I remember very clearly we were sitting at Emilio's, this restaurant across from our old office, and all of our phones just kept dinging every like 20 seconds. And it got to the point where we couldn't even talk because we kept looking down and being like, oh, another sale. And then we're like, dude, this is crazy. This is starting to really pick up.
This is impressive. Like everything you've done has been unbelievable. Oh, I think I remember. Going into this, was this always the plan? Like, let's hit, a number that we feel really proud of, and then let's be public about it. Or was it kind of like, oh, we should really leverage this. Like we've crushed it. Like, let's kind of use this as an opportunity to expand and get some, like owned media, kind of third media.
I mean, it was never really the plan. It just kind of started happening. And because we started getting more and more interest, more people wanted to know. And I didn't really realize at the time how significant it was compared to the landscape until people on the outside started telling me and started looking at the 100 million in 2 years and going, that's just never been done. Like it's just such an anomaly, especially bootstrapped and profitable. That's a whole nother caveat that makes it even more impressive. So I was just operating and trying to build the best business I could for the people and the customers and the employees. And I never really stopped to think, I got to hit 100 million in this time period. It just happened because I kept putting the customer first in every aspect. And the people gravitate towards that. They notice. It's not lost on people when you create a ton of value at every turn and they realize that you are really solving a problem of pricing and fit and consistency and all the problems we solve for people that they didn't even know was a problem at the time. And so I shined a light on it and the TAM was enormous. It was much larger than I realized. I thought this was going to be like a 5 million a year business when I first started it. And then within the first couple of months, my co-founders and I were sitting around and all our phones were dinging. You know, that Shopify cash register ding that everyone gets in the beginning. And I remember very clearly we were sitting at Emilio's, this restaurant across from our old office, and all of our phones just kept dinging every like 20 seconds. And it got to the point where we couldn't even talk because we kept looking down and being like, oh, another sale, another sale. And then we're like, dude, this is crazy. This is starting to really pick up. And so, yeah, we just basically quit everything we were doing. We had all these other businesses planned. This was the one that I was really passionate about. And because it was very personal to me. And I wanted to see it through and see if it was really what I thought it could be. But I definitely never dreamed it would get to these levels. I mean, I don't think anyone ever dreams that you're going to do hundreds of millions in revenue. It just sounds like such an astronomical number. It's hard to wrap your head around still to this day. But it all starts with the crux of just thinking and reverse engineering what the customer needs and wants, and then reiterating on their feedback all the time. That is the path to crushing, is ultimately just like customer insights. You know, what do they care about? And, you know, if we're going to roll something out, how are they going to feel about it before we roll it out? And can we make it even better before we roll it out, given the feedback that we've gotten back? And I think if you constantly live in that framework, you're just going to do great things because the customers will appreciate the thoughtfulness that goes into what you're trying to create. I don't know if you've ever seen a Tesla. Have you ever been inside of a Tesla?
Yeah, my mom has one. She's a little techie.
It's the perfect representation of basically building a new bicycle and saying, throw out everything you think you know about a car, and let's think about how to, I mean, dude, even the acceleration and the braking in a Tesla. So my wife has a Model X, and when you take your foot off the gas, it automatically brakes. It's one of the most genius thing. It's so small and nuanced, but like you think about it now, it's like, God, that makes so much sense why it would do that. Right. And like, who would have thought of that other than, you know, people being insanely thoughtful about the product that they're creating? And that's why when you get into Tesla and everything just works right, and they re-engineered how the steering wheel works and how the gas works and how the dash works, and you're just like, dude, why did it take everyone so long to make a better car?
Yeah.
Well, it took one person ripping everything apart and starting from ground zero and just going, what would a human want out of this versus how do I just make it a little bit better than last year's model, which is how everyone else has been making cars forever. They just go, let me just make it a little bit better. And then a little, kind of like how the iPhone is, right? It's just like slightly better camera this year. And everyone's kind of like, whatever. I'll wait till the next 3 models before I upgrade my phone. But the Tesla, man, the Tesla was the most thoughtful creation in automobile history, in my opinion. And it just brought me back to the same concept that we live and die by, which is just intentionality will win every single time, because most brands are not doing it right and they're not thinking about their customers. So it's something that we really live and die by, honestly.
And sorry, my dog loves to get involved in these conversations. This will be cut out. Well,
big Tesla fan.
You can't help but tell me how much he loves getting my mom's Tesla. So for you, it sounds like there are things that you just like must have hated or irked you about the product, like basic products, like men's basics, as well as e-commerce, that you were like, for the love of God, we're not doing that. We're breaking that, to get a little bit into like the nitty gritty of products.
For sure. There was a lot of things. I mean, number one, I think there's a lost art in how you deal with customers. I think that even just this last weekend, I was sitting there checking in to the Aria, and there was 5 people checking people in, and only 1 out of the 5 was checking people in, and the other 4 had their heads down and they were staring at the computer. And I'm looking around, and there's a line out the door, and I'm looking around, and I'm just like, what happened to us? Why do we all think this is just okay? Everyone's sitting here frustrated in line. This is a terrible experience, right? The Aria executives don't give 2 craps about us. They're just like, keep it moving, right? Keep it moving, come in and out, get your stuff, pay your bill, move on. And I'm just thinking, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Every business is suffering from this. They just don't think the customer cares. And I can guarantee you, every single person in that line was thinking the same thing I was. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, we're all standing here. We're trying to get in. You got 4 out of 5 people not caring about us. Like, can we just get to our room? And so there is something that we've lost in most businesses where they just don't care enough about customer service, especially when customers are complaining and having a terrible experience, right? Yeah. That's your moment to win them over and show them that you actually do care and that, yeah, I can take the brunt of it and tell you, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to happen that way. We're going to create a better experience moving forward. Here's how we correct for it. And that is how you build community. You take those customers that have bad experiences and you turn them into winners, and they will love you forever, because in that moment, that was your opportunity. And what they're ultimately looking for is for you to own it and turn it around for them so that they can become loyal customers. They're not just complaining just to complain, because people look at them and they're like, yeah. Next, like you're going to be a complainer, stand over there. And we look at it like, now is the time to capture them, because they're crying for help. They just want you to listen. They just want you to be their therapist for 20 seconds and say, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Here you go. You want a free shirt? There you go. And that was one thing that when we came into this, Nick and I, who's one of my co-founders, we did all the customer service for like a year, and it was brutal. But we were so good at it because we both were on the same page about being Ritz-Carlton. We were like, when we deal with customers, we are going to go so over the top for them that they're going to tell those stories forever. They're going to tell them forever because it's going to be so magical that they're not going to be able to help but to tell those stories. And so that was one thing that I was just like, I know I'm going to do better than everyone when it comes to customer service, because I'm going to be relentless. I'm going to spend so much time thinking about them that they're going to be shocked when I turn around and send them a present that isn't even true classic. Like, this lady had a baby. I could hear the baby in the background. And instead of sending her a refund, I sent her, a baby toy or something. Like, I can't even remember what it was, but our team does this kind of stuff all the time. They call it like surprise and delight. And we've really instilled these values in them. Like, if you see a situation that's specific to something and you think you can make a difference, just go and spend the money. We don't care what it costs. Don't buy them a Tesla, but like maybe buy them a thoughtful mug with something written on it that's specific to them or whatever. Like, it could be a million things. So that was one thing that I think is largely overlooked in just about every industry. And I see it so much. And I think it's such a big miss for so many companies to not heavily over-index on customer service, because there's just something to the customer always being right and what that actually means. Not just like, yeah, like give them what they want and tell them to shut up. No. Go to bat for them and really show that you give a shit, because if you don't, you deserve to go out of business. And so, because every business is just built on humans, right? Mm-hmm. So that was one thing. I also knew marketing wise, I was going to crush almost everybody in my space because I just knew that no one was going to go as deeper than me on creative. Having a musical background gave me so much leverage. It gave me so much, because I had been creating music my whole life. So even though I hadn't been doing a lot of photo shoots and that type of creative, I had the right mindset going into it that I was just going to create better things than everybody else. I wasn't going to reverse, or reinvent the wheel necessarily, but I was going to create content that people actually cared about versus content that is just selling you something. That's where the comedy came into play. And that's why when I was thinking about how do we make people feel good, that's what the product did for people. They put it on, they look better, they feel good. That's where we get the whole look good, feel good mantra. And so how does that translate into creative? Well, how do we make creative that makes people feel good? Well, it has to be funny. It just has to be funny. Then they will feel good. And so I went on that journey, and that was amazing. And I found GregTube. I turned them into a household name. And not to take anything away from them, they weren't doing any ads when I met them. They were just two guys making TikToks. They were hilarious. I saw something in them, and now they're doing ads for like Uber Eats, and they're crushing it. But they were huge for us. They they were the first kind of catalyst into our comedy content that we make. Now we do a lot of it in-house. Nicholas does an amazing job. He's one of our script writers and producers and directors, and he does an unbelievable job for us. So we do a lot in-house still, but so that was creative. And then the other problems that I was really trying to solve was just the gouging of the customer, was like in the price. I just felt like premiums were so massively overpriced that I just felt like it wasn't fair. I just felt like, why are they able to charge so much? I know that they're not putting all that money into the product.
Yeah.
And so the more I understood product and cogs and all that, I'm like, these guys are just gouging. It's not like they're making some unbelievable, never before seen fabric that feels so great that your life has changed. They're just charging and making a massive margin. So I wanted to just cut everybody's legs out and be like, the days of gouging are over, guys. So sorry. It's time to start being real with the customers and giving back to them. And so that was another thing. And then the fit was the other big component to this whole thing. I just, I thought, I look at like the Gap and I look at these brands and I was always perplexed at why everything was so non-cohesive to their collections. It was every type of style, everywhere, every color, every pattern. And I was like, I just want to simplify this for everyone. I'm going to do plain everything. The fit is going to be the same on every single thing, everything, whether it's a dress shirt, a long sleeve, a polo, a t-shirt, the fit will literally be the same so that everyone can just look at it and go, oh, well, I know that's going to fit me because it's a medium and I wear medium, right? I don't need to go a large because it's this style and then it's going to fit like this. And then I got to return it. And like, no. I'm just going to make your life easier and tell you that the fit is the fit is the fit, period, end of story. And that matters so much to people. And guys are such simple creatures. They don't want to like think about like, how is this going to look on me? They just want to know how it's going to look on them. Right. So I was like, okay, I can simplify the experience. I can make it consistent. I can make the fit more flattering for a man's body so that they look better in the t-shirt. How does this not win? And, it really took, and people responded to it. And that was the crux of what built True Classics so quickly.
It's incredible. Was this your first entrepreneurial venture journey?
It was my first in the consumer goods department, but I had a service-based business called SEO Direct, which is an agency. And it was essentially digital marketing, heavy on the SEO, but we did a lot of paid media and a lot of Facebook, a lot of PPC. And I built a lot of small businesses into medium-sized businesses, but it was not super fulfilling. And, I would like get a law firm, they would be at 3 employees. And within a few years, I would get them up to, 8 employees. And it was just kind of like, great. Like that's nice. And they make more money and I make more money and great. Everyone's happy. But I did that for like a decade and it wasn't filling my bucket at all. Like it just wasn't fulfilling. And then I kept thinking, I'm watching all these consumer products and I'm just thinking like, God, they're missing the boat there. God, they're missing up over here. Why aren't they doing that? And I just kept thinking I could do it better. I could do it better. I could do it better. And then I was like, let me just put my money where my mouth is and actually go and do it. And that was the genesis of True Classic. And it was something in 2018 that I started like stirring in my head, like which product should I put out? What should I do? And the t-shirt thing just came very naturally because I had always been looking for this kind of perfect t-shirt that didn't exist yet. And so it took me about a year to really put it all together. And then that was it. I created the IP, the website, the kind of the thoughtfulness around how I wanted the product to fit in the market. And then I was about to kind of launch it by myself. And then I realized, well, I'm probably going to need some product and someone who runs manufacturing, because I'm not a manufacturing guy. I don't know how to do that stuff. I'm like a marketer, creative guy. So, that's when Nick came in and Matt introduced me to him, and he came from the apparel background and he was super successful. He sold his apparel company. He did a lot of licensing work in Amazon and made some money. So he knew how to talk to these guys and he knew how to bring my vision to life. And we went through a few samples, a few iterations, and we just kicked it off. And that was it.
I mean, I think there's a lot of incredible things about this, but the two things that stand out to me are one, you entered a category that most people would be like terrified of. It's kind of like liquid death doing water, right? It's like, okay, so I'm going to sell something that's kind of the most challenging thing out there in my category. And then two, I'm going to do it at this time where paid advertising is like absolutely not what it was like, 3 years prior. And you did that with just like the utmost confidence. It's crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, what do I have to lose ultimately? Right? Like I didn't invest a ton of money. We put $3,000 into this thing. We had nothing to lose but time. Right? Like, because you don't need a lot of money to start. That's the thing that people think. You have to build a big business with a boatload of cash, and it's just not true. If the product is great, the people will sniff it out. Just like in music, when there's an artist that isn't big, right? But the distribution is there because there's this special little thing called YouTube. And if the music is great, people will sniff it out and they will make you great and they will show everybody. And you can be no one from nowhere and you can make a hit song and it will be at the top of and you'll become the center of the universe for a little while. And then your career will take off because it's all about the product and how it resonates with people. And so people did so much of the work for us in the beginning through just word of mouth. And so that was a huge piece to this whole thing, was like, create something great and the people will come and you'll build that community. So I wasn't scared because I had failed at a million things in my life. I flunked out of college early on. My poker career never panned out. My music career never panned out. And I was kind of used to failing, And so it was like, well, I'm just going to fail again. No big deal. I'll move on to the next project and try something else and just see where it goes. And that was kind of my mentality. And I think that's how most entrepreneurs kind of live. They just keep going and going and going. And if it doesn't pan out over a year, then maybe I give up and go back to the drawing board. But I was going to give it enough time to see it through. I think I gave myself about 9 to 12 months. And I was like, if I can't see, but then it happened in the first month and we were all like, wow. So luckily I didn't have to go down that road too long, which I can imagine is going to be very daunting for people when they try to start something and they try to force it and it's just losing money. And the great thing about Facebook is that you can test products at scale on a very small budget. You don't need tens of thousands of dollars to test Facebook ads. You can test it in the market and then you look at the data, you look at the ROAS and you say, okay, did it net out correctly for me? Did I make money? Am I profitable? Am I losing money on every customer? Am I breaking even on every customer, which is kind of the world we live in. Even to this day, we're thinking about contribution profit per new order is kind of what we live and die by as a metric, instead of just kind of blanket ROAS, because revenue is very misleading. So, but early on, we really just did focus on ROAS and we really just built the business on ROAS. And because it was just, it's money in, money out essentially. And how does that net out after expenses and kind of like, what's your contribution margin? And then after OpEx, what's your net profit? So it was, and I didn't have like a really strong finance background. I mean, I'm a broke musician, for God's sakes. Like, what do I know about math? But I had to learn how to really read a P&L and how to understand what contribution margin actually meant to the business and where our break-even ROAS is. That's another metric that people don't think about. You have to have all your data input into some sort of system. Early on, we used order metrics, but it wasn't a perfect system. It was cheap and we needed something cheap because we didn't want to, spend too much money. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to where we knew where our break-even ROAS was. So on any given day, if we hit like a 1.6, we were break even. If we hit a 1.8, we were profitable. If we hit a 2, we were really profitable, and so on and so on. So once we found that sweet spot, using kind of like your BI software, whatever that is, and now it's like the lookers and all the like the really sophisticated like NASA level BI that we use. But in the beginning, it was really simple and it was just live and die by Facebook. And if we can make it work there, then we're kind of onto something. And we also understood that if it works here, we can scale it. It's just the most scalable platform out there. So
Do you have
yeah,
someone in-house that is, or an agency that's managing kind of your data pipeline?
both.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we've been through the ringer on BI. It has been such a labor of love. I mean, I think we're just now approaching 4 years, and we still don't even really have a complete 100% hold on all the accuracy of all the data all the time. It's just a very difficult thing to nail down. We're getting really close though. We have a new girl starting in July who's going to be like kind of head of everything BI, which I'm really excited about. And then we've been using Source Medium, which is an agency that does a phenomenal job.
Yep.
I love them over there. I love the owner. He is an absolute rock star, and they've done some really great work for us. And we've tried a bunch of them. It's really difficult. It's just this ever evolving, really technical business, and it's so complex. And you get these people in here, and they interview really well, and then you set them free, and they're just lost. They don't even know where to start. And we're like, hey, can I get a dashboard for the CEO and the founders so that we can see all the high level metrics? And they're like, yeah, that's going to take 6 months. And you're just like, dude, I don't have that kind of time. So we've been actually using, it's funny, we went back the other way. So we used to spend a lot on BI. Then what we realized, there's this app called Lifetimely and Shopify,
Oh yeah.
and it was like $100 a month. And it
Charity.
literally solved for like so many things. We were overcomplicating it so badly. We were spending all this money on freelancers and people, like all these smart data people, and it was netting out to just more complications and issues. And by the way, way more expenses. And then we're like, what is this Lifetime? We'll just give it a shot. And we installed it. And it was like $100 a month. And we're like, God, we have real-time visibility into our P&L. We can look at any day and see what it looks like. And we can look at cohorts and map them into the future. It was just a game changer. So I got to give a shout out to them. Great piece of software that they have, but we need something more sophisticated, right? Like, it's just, the business needs more out of BI. So it's evolving and getting better, but we'll get there hopefully in due time.
I do feel like Lifetimely is this secret that works for 99% of Shopify businesses incredibly well.
Yeah.
I talked to the founder when I was at WeCommerce, and was small team, incredibly run business. Like, talk about very strategic about his P&L, had this incredible data room. I was blown away.
Yeah, we love it. I use it every single day, honestly. They sends me an automated email. I get a snapshot every morning. We've given them a lot of feedback. They've taken it. They've made things better. So I'm happy for sure.
Cool. Okay, so to jump into like the P&L, how do you think about it? Like, just generally, like, obviously you're looking at every month. You guys are talking about it as founders, discussing, probably doing like a postmortem every month on how things are going. What's kind of top of mind for you, like right now at this stage in the business?
Obviously, the big thing that everyone talks about is EBITDA, right? It kind of rules everyone's world these days, because the days of just driving revenue for the sake of driving revenue is long gone. And people would see how that pans out, right? If you're not operating a real business with real profits, you have no business. Mm-hmm. Because the second those revenues start dipping, you're in trouble. So I'm obviously looking a lot at the bottom line and how that grows over time. So, I mean, the first year we were like 2% EBITDA, and then we were like 4% the next year. And last year we were like 5%. This year we're going to hopefully do over 10%. So we're really going to maximize. And that's really a function of just having so many smart, capable people thinking about efficiency in the business. And as you get bigger, you can pay people more, and you get the really good rock stars to come in here and get into the nitty gritty of efficiency on international, and the COGS pricing, and the shipping times, and the shipping cost per item. And they just start to really get granular and find ways to save a buck here or there. And it adds up tremendously at scale. I mean, even something as simple as adding So we just added Rocket. Have you heard of Rocket? ROKT. It's
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah,
this
yeah.
post
Oh, very
purchase.
cool. Mhm.
Yeah. And we didn't even like think about it. And then overnight it added like 3 to 4% to the bottom line for the year. Like it was that impactful. And this is a post, because it's just all pure profit, because it's post sale. It brings up this little pop up and it shows you other advertisers, right? Like, are you interested in an offer? Click here, and they click, and you get paid on that click. So, I mean, it's just like simple things that you don't really think about until someone in like our growth department who came on, Paige, she's this killer from that we got from Facebook, and she came in and just implemented it, and it was just like boom, overnight, all this extra money to the bottom line. So that's a great example of like when you get killers in here who are thinking about what's right for the business and how to move the needle, which are a lot of our core principles, then it's going to drive performance and it's going to make the business better. And that's what you want out of people. So when I think about the P&L, just to answer your question, obviously, I don't get too much into the weeds. I really just look at the high level metrics that matter. I look at the month over month EBITDA. I look at how we're trending compared to last year, obviously, because I want to keep that in mind. I want to look at obviously how top line is trending, where contribution margin is at. I'm also really focused on OpEx, and I think it's very, I think people overlook it. I think it's easy to overlook it, but man, does that eat up all your profits. And it's easy to inflate that thing because you're like, oh, all this money's coming in. I can just keep hiring like crazy. And before you know it, it starts stacking up. And you're watching that OpEx go from 2% to 12%. And then it just keeps creeping up and up and up as you get bigger. So it's, we run this company super lean. I mean, for 250 million in revenue, we are massively understaffed. We have like 60 people here. Most people you talk to that do hundreds of millions have over 150 people. So we're very smart about how we hire, and we don't overhire. It also allows us to not have to fire people when everyone else is doing that, because they're bloated, right? They're completely bloated and they're looking at their OpEx and they're going, my gosh, what do these people even do? I don't even know. And then they're just like laying off hundreds or even thousands of people. And that's a place I don't want to get to. I'd rather grow at the pace that we're comfortable with and hire at the pace we're comfortable with versus have to lay people off because we went too fast. And I want to be very responsible with humans and not put them at risk for the sake of just growing at all costs.
Yeah.
So I keep it pretty basic on the P&L. I leave a lot of that to our finance department and our really smart thinkers here on how to make it the most efficient. And I just focus on the high level metrics that I know are going to really kind of matter for the business. And, I have to take into consideration how people are going to value us in the future.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a little salty about PEs these days and the market, it's just been such a colossal waste of time for us that I just don't want to give it a ton of energy right now in my day to day. But yeah, so I have to think about that as well, even though I hate thinking about it because I don't do this for them, but they won't stop knocking down our door and wasting our time. So I have to think about it. And plus there's people here with equity and they want to know about it. So I have to kind of keep it in mind, but yeah, it's always evolving.
Yeah. So you take the call. Like someone knocks, you
Begrudgingly, yes, I take the call. But I already know how it's going to pan out because everyone is super risk adverse, especially right now. And listen, we're like one of the best on paper in the market right now in terms of like growing faster than anyone, looking better on paper than anyone. And we can't even like get close to sniffing out a term sheet. So that's not to say we haven't had a couple with some pretty raw terms, but if it's rough for us, you can imagine what the rest of the market is feeling right now, trying to raise money and being diluted and just like taking bad deals. And we just don't need to take a bad deal. Like we're just going to wait until the perfect opportunity comes along and maybe consider selling. Right now, we're just like, we've wasted so many months and time of walking people through the business and showing them this. And what I realize is they just want to know the story. And now I'm just like sending them a link to a podcast. I'm like, here, just don't waste my time. Just go listen to all this and it's all there. You don't need to like go back and forth with me on 10 meetings and talk to our CFO and go to the data room and try to figure this out and ask a bunch of like questions that aren't going to matter because you're just going to come back and tell us that talk to us in 6 months. So what is all this song and dance for? And so I think a lot of it is just, you know, it's kind of a broken model because these people just want to keep their jobs and they don't want to take risk anymore.
Yeah.
And so growing this fast has actually hurt us in that people don't know how to value us.
Mm-hmm.
We're such an anomaly that they almost get more scared instead of more excited, like we are, right? Because we're looking at it like, no one's ever done this. And then they're like, yeah, that's exactly why we're scared. It's like, it could all just be crumbling down that much faster. That's how they see it, right? They don't see the day-to-day and how we like kind of operate the business and how well it's all functioning. So I get it, but someone's going to have to take a leap of faith at some point and take some risk here.
Yeah.
And those are the people that will win. Ultimately, it's the big risk takers. And that's what we do so well. Matt and I are big time poker players. We take a ton of risk. We're gamblers at heart. You know, I spend a lot of time gambling when I'm in Vegas for a reason. I'm a risk taker. I love risk.
Why? Why is this? Why do you love risk? I want to double click on that. I think that's so interesting.
Because I love betting on myself. I love just the journey of setting a goal and then going after and crushing that goal. You know, that's what we're doing now, which is like, here's what we're looking at for the year. How do we go out and crush against that? But, you know, with that comes, there's some mitigation of risk in terms of planning for inventory buys and things that could really hurt the company if you overextend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, you know, I've always been a risk taker. I always love taking risk in business, but it can definitely work the other way and work against you if you're not careful. But now we have such great people in our demand planning where they don't let us take too much risk. And so there's like a really good balance now. In the beginning, it was the other way. We had no demand planner and we took so much risk and then weren't able to meet those goals and the company suffered. And we had to make some raw deals with some of the manufacturers. But ultimately, we were so good to them and we made them a lot of money. They worked with us and they worked through the issues just like a good partner would in a time of struggle. So it was tough to sometimes, but I'm glad we did it because we learned so much about how far we could push it. And we found that line of like, okay, that was a little too much. And here's what we learned from that moving forward. Let's get better people in here to mitigate risk and not go so crazy on the upside. Let's bet somewhere in the middle now. Even I would say middle to upper. Like we bet somewhere in the upper range, but like in 2021, we bet so far above and beyond. It was just mind blowing how big we bet on our inventory. And it was not a good situation at all. But we did it with the thought. I remember Matt and I having this conversation, like, what's going to happen if we can't make our bills? And we always had the mindset that like, we're just going to figure it out. We're going to talk to people. We're going to convince them that we're in this and they're going to be with us and that it's going to all net out fine in the end. So we were very confident that we could work deals, even though in the short term, it wasn't going to look great. Like we're going to have to pay more interest. We're going to have to do some safety stock deals. We're going to have to hold more fabric or whatever it was. Like or we're going to like have to promise the vendors X amount of business next year or whatever it was. Like you have to like start negotiating. And we're ruthless negotiators. And we just always knew that if it came down to it, we would figure out a way. And ultimately, that's what we did. And, you know, we're lucky that we have such great leaders here, you know, that can negotiate it on behalf of us and really be out there doing right by us with the company and forming these great partnerships and relationships, because at the end of the day, that's everything. If you're not paying your bills, these people will not work with you. You know, you have to come up with payment schedules that make them feel comfortable. Yes, you're not paying the full bill, but you will over a certain time period. Here's how much money you're going to get weekly. You got to give them consistency and visibility into the business so that they feel comfortable and they will give you everything if you make them understand the future and how things are run transparently in the organization. They're just people at the end of the day. They're going to be reasonable. And listen, there's a lot of like, the big companies, you know what they do? They just kill POs when they decide, like American Eagle. Oh, sorry, we over forecasted. We're just going to cut this PO and you have to eat it. That's how those businesses operate. It's insane. Because I know that because they all tell me these stories of how Gap and all these other companies just cut orders at the last minute and leave them high and dry. And we were like, we're never going to do that. We promised this much. We're gonna ride this out and get through it and spend through this inventory. And it's gonna suck for a little while, but we're not gonna go back on our word and ruin the relationship. But these businesses are so large to these manufacturers. These manufacturers have no leverage because they're ordering, tens of millions of units. They have to take the good with the bad, unfortunately. Yeah. But we have great partners and we build great relationships with us. And that's why, we continue to thrive with them.
Sounds like you've built trust.
Absolutely.
Have you taken on any other forms of capital? Like, have you thought about it, I guess? Have there been moments where you're like, man, I would love to take on some debt so we can just blow X, Y, or Z out of the water? Ultimate form of risk, I guess.
Yeah, we do have inventory debt with Wayflyer. They've been an unbelievable partner. The banks are weird with debt. They want like 50 million of EBITDA annually and like a lot of time. They're very old school, the banks. You know what I mean? They really want history, and we're only 3.5 years in. So they look at us and they're like, yeah, maybe next year, guys. And like, so the banks are tough. So we had to go outside of the banks, and Wayflyer has been unbelievable for us. Jack and everybody over there has been super great about moving and being fluid with us and working deals with us. And I just love them as a partner. They're one of our strongest partners, and I always shout them out. Them and Shopify, and Harley's an amazing guy. He runs a great company over there. Those two have been the biggest for our business. And so, yeah, we had to take on some debt for the sake of keeping this whole business running and making sure all our vendors are paid on time. And that's what happens again when you overbuy. You have to figure out a way to pay people. Otherwise, they'll come after you. And so we had to take on some debt, but, we're paying it down just like anybody would. And yes, we're paying enormous interest rate, which doesn't feel good, but it's like, this is what you have to do. Or the alternative is raise money. And we are very much against raising money. I don't come from that world. I come from running a real business world. And so that's what I did at SEO Direct. I never took any money on over there, and I just built it slowly all the way up profitably. And so I don't really know any other way. It doesn't feel good to raise money either. I don't want to dilute everybody. It just doesn't feel right, in my opinion. The only time I would bring on outside money is either if we decide to do like a big secondary, or if we have some growth initiatives that need capital. For instance, if we decide for retail that we want to scale to, like right now we have 5 stores. If we want to scale to 100 stores, that's going to take pretty significant injection of capital. And so we would do something in that case, but I don't think we're going to scale that quickly on retail because it's a tough business. It's not super profitable, as you know. And so and we're profitable now. So like everything we are investing in, it's just coming off of our bottom line. So it's like, we don't really need the money. And so that we're in a really good place as far as that's concerned. But like, would I ever consider it? Sure. Are we having a lot of conversations? All the time. I mean, this is basically what Matt does for a living, my co-founder. He just sits on the phone with these guys all day, talking to banks and PEs and bankers. And it's just like non-stop, like whirlwind of like,
what's your this? What's your that? Da, da, da. Where's the data room? Yeah.
It just never ends. It's just because like the second you get done with another phone call, another guy's knocking on your door, and then another guy's knocking on your door.
We're all
and it's
talking.
Just,
yeah.
And exactly. And so they all pile on, and it just is what it is when you're a growing business, but it comes with the territory.
Yeah. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, it is a good place.
Well, I know we're over time.
I mean,
So
I'm okay. If you want to ask more questions, I don't care. We can keep going a little bit
you're
if you want.
so good at this, by the way. Like
Oh,
you,
wow. Thank you.
yeah. Do you know this? Like, I'm really impressed. I feel
I
like,
don't think of I don't think of myself as good at this. I just feel like I'm an honest guy who lives this stuff every day. So it's easy for me to talk about. Because this is all we do. So it's just comes very natural to talk about it.
yeah. I don't think everyone is quite as natural in being so transparent. Like, I think for some people, it's kind of hard for them to get there and to be able to like really like evaluate what's happening and then how it's making them feel. It just takes it takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a lot of work. I mean, ultimately what I always think about, and you know this by now, is that I try to just think about like the other people listening on the other end of this, what can they take away from it? And that really makes me happy to think about like what nuggets are going to help their business. And that's why I do these podcasts, is because it just gives so much insight and it shows people that you can build a giant business from nothing
Yeah.
except intentionality. And if you can just be more intentional, and by the way, 90% of the products in the market are super unintentional. So like the market is wide open. People think that everything has been done. They might be right. Everything has been done, but everything that's been done is not all the way there. And that's what you see with like cereal, like Magic Spoon, right? They imagine embarking in the cereal world,
Yeah.
right? But they just thought about it a little bit better. And that's the game. It's like you take something and you just make it a little bit better. And that's a whole business in itself. And then it just comes down to like, how good are you as an operator and understanding your customer and how good are you at marketing? And so, but it really does go back to like the product of intentionality and how that bleeds into everything you do. And are you doing it for the right reasons? I didn't need any money. The founders didn't need any money. You know, it would have been a different business had the three of us needed money. You know, we had all been successful in our own right before this. So it allowed us to just work for no money for a long time and bootstrap it. So that helped a lot, right? Like our bills were already paid. We didn't have to take on a bunch of money and bring on a bunch of investors that were going to tell us how to run the business and what to do. We could just do it our way and just say, you know what, we're not going to make money, but in the end, we'll make money. So it'll be fine. And we just kind of believed in ourselves. That's pretty huge. I think entrepreneurs need to understand that you are not going to get paid for a long time. You know, I would say years if you're going to do it right, because you don't want to be sucking capital out of the business, because every dollar that you make should be going towards acquiring a new customer. So that's what we did. We just kept reinvesting the money into getting more customers. And so we weren't sucking it out and putting it in our pockets like a lot of people do in the beginning, which just completely stagnates growth. You know what I mean? Like if you're not using those dollars wisely, you are going to have a rough road and you're not going to grow quickly either. You have to use every dollar you have to its maximum potential. And I don't think you need to spend a lot of money on anything other than Facebook either. And I'm not just saying that to like drink the Facebook Kool-Aid. I'm just telling you from experience,
Wow.
you don't need to spend on TikTok. You don't need to spend on Google. You don't need to spend on anything but Facebook. Now, eventually you will spend on all those other channels. But in the beginning, you can just spend money on Facebook and that is it. The other thing I would say is that, you know, we are break even on new customer acquisition, right? So the question is, how do we make our money if we're break even? Well, retention. That's the whole game. The whole EBITDA crux is built around lifetime value and EBITDA. That's it. So we index heavily in our email and SMS, and that drives all of our profitability because you want those customers coming back and you want them buying. So that it offsets everything else essentially. So we spend a great deal of time thinking about how to bring customers back and how to create new categories that will bring them back. And that's also why we expand so rapidly into everything. I mean, we started at t-shirts and now we do formal wear. Now we do dress shirts, activewear, underwear. We do everything because that's what keeps the customers coming back. And it's a great journey to go on too, because you really are providing value for them to come back. It's not like you're, you know, creating tactical strategies to bring them back. It's like You're just creating real value to bring them back. And that's the best way to do retention. So, if I'm a new guy and I'm listening to this, the takeaway should be you can do it with no money. You can just use Facebook. Focus on your email and SMS as a form of driving profitability. Use Shopify because you don't want the headaches of WooCommerce and open source, which are difficult platforms to say the least to work on. I mean, Shopify really nailed it. They made life so easy for me. And I come from a WordPress world. I've been a WordPress guy my whole life. So to just abandon that and go to Shopify, I just understood the value of Shopify. And I didn't want to deal with, a parenthesis hitting the PHP code and cracking the website and going to blackness because the header.php had a parentheses in line 4. Like, that's
you didn't know about
stuff,
the parentheses? Yeah.
dude, drives me nuts. And so when I met Shopify, I was like, oh my God, they figured it out. Like, you can have a parentheses in there and it doesn't break the whole website. That's amazing. So use Shopify, use Lifetimely. If you need debt, use Wayflyer. These are the partners that we trust and love. They've done a phenomenal job for us. And don't overthink it, man. Just get going and start tackling one issue at a time. Start failing, using those failures as learnings, and just keep pushing and making things more efficient. And then when you have the money, you bring in the killers, you bring in the Ben Yahalams and the MKs and all the killers we have here now, and you let them really ramp up the business. That's when things go from, the 100 million to the 500 million, right? Like, we were able to get to the 100 million with not a lot of pedigree behind us. But then what happened is that you attract the pedigree once you create some real buzz. And then the Bens become interested, and the MKs get interested from, like, he's like from Fabletics and Ben is from Facebook. And like, now all of a sudden they're like, what is going on over here? And then they come in, and then it really takes off. And then you see the power of really smart people that are energized by such an amazing business, and you get to see their influence, and it is like night and day. And you look back and you're like, how did I ever run this business without them? Because they are just so impactful. And I love those guys. They've created so much value for us. And I just can't say enough about them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What, if you're checking out for the day and you're like, I can't work anymore. I've worked to capacity. What are you doing? Are you reading? Are you watching TV? Are you playing music? What's your checkout?
I mean, there's not a lot of checkout time. I go home and my 3 kids under the age of 7 are ready for me to they want to play the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 game, which is basically they run around the house and I find them and grab them and tickle them. And that's all they want to do is play that game. So I come home and they immediately want to run and hide, play hide and seek, and jump in the hot tub or go fishing or whatever we do that day. They just want my time. And so I give all my energy when I come home to them, because I only get probably 3 hours when I come home from working to them. So I get them in the morning, and then I go all day without seeing them. And then I use my last couple hours with them. I put them down. And then after that, my wife and I spend our time together from like 7 to whenever we fall asleep, like 10:30. And that's our time. So I don't get a lot of time for myself, honestly. And I'm okay with that. I'm living such a great life. I don't need a lot of time. I mean, music wise, I'll play a little piano here and there for the kids, or on a Sunday morning, I'll play a few songs just to kind of fill my soul a little with some creativeness. But I don't have a ton of time for myself these days. We just went to Vegas, and that was my time. Like, I got to just like play blackjack for like 3 hours, right? Like, just uninterrupted. And that was amazing for me. And I just love competing and battling against the dealer. And so that's kind of my time. And my wife is really good about like knowing that that's my time, and I'm going to be out with the kids. You do your thing. And so we try to like find time for ourselves. But I feel like eventually I'll have a lot more time for myself. I'm totally okay with giving 100% of my time to my kids right now, because it's those formative years where you're not going to have them forever. and they're so young that like these are the moments that really matter. I remember my dad, you know, and I being young, and those just little things that we would do together are cemented in my head forever. So I take that and I really apply it. And I know how important it is to them that because if I come home and they're like, let's play this game, and I'm like, I gotta work, and they don't care about any of that. They don't care about the business. They don't care about, and even though I do have to work and there's a lot of stress and there's a lot I have to do, it's just so important to just do what they want to do and just give them the time and energy. So I just focus on the fam when I get home. And eventually, you know, I won't be here forever. You know, I won't probably run this company forever. I'll have plenty of time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not worried about that. Um, I bought back a lot of my time just by being in this position. So I still feel like I'm better off than most, even though I have no time for myself. Uh, I can see the future, and I'm excited for that time to just, you know, when the kids are in school, that I'm just sitting around and go back to making music maybe someday. You know, just for myself, really, not for anyone or anyone else's satisfaction. I just like to create, and it's just very fulfilling, whether people listen or not. It's just a great thing to be able to create.
Yeah. What do you call this like chapter in the book of your life? Like, what is this chapter kind of?
It's definitely the final ish chapter. I mean, I'm definitely like getting to the point where I'm ready for someone to kind of take the lead and take a lot of the pressure off my shoulders and let me just be a founder. Like Nick and Matt, my other co-founders, are really kind of living the life. I mean, they're just kind of doing what they want, when they want, how they want. And as a CEO, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
You know, someone's upset, you got to have a conversation with them. This person said this thing to me. They want to tell me about it. I got to sit and listen and figure it out and understand where they're coming from. There's just, you know, a lot happening when you're the CEO that you have to deal with behind the scenes that is not glamorous at all. And so, you know, I can't wait to be out of that position and really just focused on whatever the next chapter is, which I think is going to be some form of, I don't know. I always tell Ben I want to do like some sort of school thing where I build some sort of online school or university, or I just want to help people on some level. Like I have this idea of doing this YouTube show where people just come on and I give them like 10 minutes and I rip their website apart and I'm like brutally honest. And I just do that for like an hour every day. Like that's my idea of like how to get granular and give back. So it's going to be some form. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I know it's going to be something like that where I'm just helping people at scale learn kind of the true classic playbook journey and everything that we've learned, and how now I give it back to everyone and go, look, you don't need a lot of money. You just need time and energy. Here's how you do it. Here's the playbook. Here's what we've learn from our mistakes. And hopefully you learn something out of it and it advances your career. And so I think that's what my next chapter is going to look like. And I don't know how that nets out yet, but I haven't had a lot of time to think about it, but I talk about it a lot with, you know, my guys internally.
That would be cool. I would watch that over and over again. Teardowns.
Yeah.
It's just like feel good. Like you're here, you could be here. Like, let me show you.
Right. And like I've been there, done that on so many CRO initiatives. Like I can just look at a website and I can give you 25 things that are going to massively move the needle on your CVR, like that, because I've just lived it for so long now. And I've been obsessed with CRO ever since we hired this company called the Conversion Rate Experts way back in the day. And they were really expensive. I remember they were like one of the biggest bills at the time that we had. But man, you talk about impact. CVR is just such a never ending game. And there's never any pursuit of higher CVR, and changing this leads to this. Adding this color leads to that. And if you do this, you put this over here, it adds more revenue. The AOV goes up because you add this into, I mean, it's just endless, endless, endless. And so that is one part that people, I don't think, invest enough time and energy into. And it's something we do so well. And we were watching our competitors pull all our stuff onto their website. So, you know, we're doing it right when everyone's just copying, and I'm fine with it. It is what it is. So, you know, it's CRO, I feel like, is one of our specialties, and it's definitely a superpower. And so I want to give that to people because, man, do we have such a strong playbook of, I mean, our AOV, just to give you an example, started at like $33. Now it's at $114. Okay. That didn't just happen by accident. Obviously, going cross category helped expand that a little bit. But ultimately, it's the journey of how you bundle things and drive up the price and create more value for people, not just driving up the price for the sake of driving up AOV. But if you create more value for people, then they will spend more money. It's that simple. So that's what we did. We package things differently. We give them more incentives. We give them more upsells. Like if you go to the website now and you add something to cart, you'll notice this gift with purchase steps that go up. Tremendous game changer for the business. So gift with purchase is great because it allows us to interject other categories that people don't know about into their cart, right? So they might not even know that we sell underwear, but if they spend $150, they get a free pair of underwear. So now they get to try it for nothing, right? And so it gives us more, and then they get it and they're like, oh my God, I love this underwear. And guess what? They come back and buy a bunch of underwear. So it just works for everybody. And God, CRO, man, I could really talk about CRO all day. It's so strong. So underutilized.
Do you evaluate it like once a month where you're like, all right, is everything working exactly how we want it to?
No, it's every day. It's every day. Yeah. Like Josh. So we have this killer. His name's Josh, and he came from Manscaped. And the guy has just brought so much value to the company. It's unbelievable. I mean, he's a CRO guy, and he CROs the site to death. And everything is a test. And anytime the team wants to do something, it's hold on, we'll try it, but we're going to test into it, right? Like, because that little change that the team wants could affect CBR one way or the other, right? So everything has to be tested into nowadays. It's not just, let's do this and let's just throw it on and see what happens. No. There's so much money at stake now that when you make one little iteration to the website, you would be shocked at how much it affects top line on a day-to-day basis. So he, is just constantly coming up with new ideas, and you're really only as good as your ideas in CRO. So you have to just be insanely creative. You have to be very thoughtful about what you're doing. And so he just does these tests every single day, and they come out, he puts it in the channel. This test number 624 won and increased revenue by 4 million a year or whatever. And he does these shout outs and everyone claps and everyone's really excited. And it's just amazing to watch this magic happen. You make a little tweak and it just creates magic. And it really teaches you a lot about customer psychology as well, and how people think about things. And it makes you realize that you have to show people where the value is on the website. That's what it all comes back to ultimately, is like where and how can I show them more value, whether it's in the cart, whether it's in the checkout, whether it's on the product page, whether it's in the collection page, value all along the way. And the more you think about that thing, the more you'll get, and the more it'll boost revenue on the website.
It's amazing. I feel like there's so much here. I can't wait. This is going to be great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for shedding so much knowledge about how you've done it. You simplified it too. I feel like we have a playbook. I hope that someone reaches out to me and says that this helped them figure out how to kind of approach their business. I could see it.
Yeah, me too. That's exactly what I hope for these things. It also, by the way, these podcasts, which I didn't really anticipate, help so much with employees internally and new hires, because the new hires come in, they watch a few podcasts or listen to a few podcasts, and they know so much about the company. They understand the values that we instill and what it means for the culture internally. And it has helped us tremendously with bringing people on, because it gives people a nice insight as to how we think about things, and it gets people excited. So
that's actually, just to double click on that. Because you kind of mentioned it for a second earlier. What are the cultural pillars that you have at TrueFlex?
Yeah. So the first one is going fast. So what does that mean? Going fast is not being reckless, but being really thoughtful, but executing very quickly on those thoughts. Because what can happen is, let's just say affiliate marketing as a growth initiative. You can start to talk to affiliate marketing platforms for months and months and months, and it can take up 9 months of your time just before you launch something. What you need to do is just, figure out a price that works for you, find a partner that you like, and then just test them right away and start moving on it quickly, right? Like, stop wasting so much time thinking about which vendor, I don't know, let's have another meeting about it. Like, meetings are the death of all productivity. So move fast. That is true classic. Everything we do moves fast, 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 but there's a lot of nuance in there. So you can't just move at any speed for no reason. So that's number one. So move fast, execute like a pro is another pillar. That is one that, just execute at a level that is far above and beyond the status quo. Really think about what you're doing. Think about the customer ultimately and how it affects them. And then, just try to execute to the best of your ability all the time. Just don't settle for being average. Always go above and beyond. And so that's number two. Moving the needle is number three, which is basically like make an impact, right? Because when you look at employees, how do you really value an employee? You value them by the way they treat other people. That's a really, really big one here. I don't care how good you are or what your pedigree is or how much you actually move the needle. If you're treating people like shit around you, you're out of here. I have fired some of our best people because they treated people poorly, because that's the culture I want to create here, is just goodness and kindness all the way around, family business, no corporate bullshit. Those people that come from corporate world, they don't know how to treat people, and it's not their fault. They come from that industry. They come with baggage, and they're used to being political inside these organizations. They come try to bring that poison in here. They are fucking out of here so much faster than they realize. Their head is spinning still thinking about it. So moving the needle, it really comes from make an impact in your position, which isn't always super easy if you're like in some sort of like project manager or operate. It's like hard to kind of measure the impact, but we always try to show people what it looks like to make an impact. Like the example I gave you of Paige coming in and adding 5% to our bottom line within a month of her working here. You talk about making an impact and moving the needle, that exemplifies it to the core. So find a way to make an impact, whatever that is. Now, maybe let's just say for the guy who's like, somewhere down the ladder and he's in the middle of, let's say he's a project manager of something. The way you can move the needle without showing it in revenue is to find a SaaS product that makes your life better and makes it better for everyone involved. Like using AI is a great example. Find an AI platform that allows you to move faster and move the needle in your department. Here's a great example. Brianna, who's our head of customer service, who's our first employee we ever hired, just redid we were on Gorgeous, the customer service platform. We told her, go out and try to find something better. And she went on this journey of testing all the different platforms. And even though everyone was like, no, Gorgeous is the industry standard, you got to use it, everyone uses it. Fuck that. What's better? Who's innovating and who's making a better product? We found this company, Zowie, and they use AI for so much of what they do. And so we moved everything over to that. And all of a sudden, our efficiency went through the roof. We have less people working and we're getting more out of everything. So that's making an impact. The fourth one is be creative, which is my favorite, because ultimately I always tell everyone that creativity is the answer to everything. Even in operations, even in meetings, even in whatever situation it is, negotiations, creativity is so massively underrated in business. And being a creative, I can see how it plays into everything because it's so obvious to me. And I think that we need to have more CEOs that are really creative thought leaders first, because it allows you to really look outside of yourself and situations and just paint with completely different colors than everybody, right? That creative is the magic. It's the magic that people can't put their finger on. When they say like, what's your moat, right? I get that dumbass question from PEs all the time. What's your fucking moat? I say creativity and the ability to build culture around that is the moat. If you can build community and you're extremely creative and thoughtful about how you present yourself, you will build a moat. And that's why no one can fuck with us. And no matter what I tell you, I'll give you the blueprint. They cannot out creative me. They just never will. They're not even going to be close to the level I'm at on creativity, because that's all I live in every day. Right. I mean, imagine going up against a fucking musician versus a guy who went to school at Yale to push papers. Give me a break, dude. We're not playing on the same playing field here. Just because you're smarter than me doesn't make you better than me. You know what I mean? Most people in this organization are smarter than me, by the way. Most people. So like, what is the difference? It's the creativity. The creativity is that magic that just people cannot put their finger on, that bleeds into every part of the business and plays such a significant role in how you deal with people, how you think about product, how you think about customers, how you think about creative. It is the magic sauce that brings it all together. And Liquid Death is the perfect example of that. Those guys brought fucking carbonated water to life. How do you bring carbonated water to life? Well, you just be a hell of a lot more creative than all the corporate idiots out there that are just trying to slap another label on another bottle of carbonated water and call it the best. No, you just make content that is so much better than everyone and you win. It's just that simple. Okay, so that's the fourth one. The fifth one, we're going to talk for 6 hours, just so you know. This is a 45-minute interview.
I can't
6 hours. Okay. The fifth one is the most important in my opinion, and it is leading with empathy. Leading with empathy is how you ultimately build great culture. It's how you build great businesses around great communities and how you resonate with the customers. It's how you earn the trust of your internal team and you show them that I'm willing to fire this guy who might be an executive at the highest levels in the company because I didn't like the way he treated this group of people over here. And so when you show them that that's what leading with empathy ultimately means, it's like, I will go above and beyond for you, and I will fight for you, and I will make sure that you feel comfortable in your position and not talked down to. And if everyone in the organization is not leading with empathy, then there's a problem. So it's not just me. It's not just our leadership team. It's everybody leads with empathy. And when people get out of line, we have to remind them of what that actually looks like. And people, they come around and they learn and they say, you're right. I'm sorry. I got out of line over here. I will have a conversation with this person. I will be better. And that's how you teach empathy to people. And it's so important to culture and keeping people at their job, because you don't want to have a high turnover internally. It's the death of most businesses. And so you have to lead with empathy and show people what it looks like, so that when they are faced with it, they can look at themselves and say, am I being as empathetic as I could have been in that situation? You know, so you have to kind of really, you know, use that as a pillar of truth. And that's how we keep people happy here, is we just continue to lead with empathy, not just internally, but also with the customers, right? It goes back to what I was talking earlier when I was talking about being the Ritz-Carlton. That is the perfect example of leading with empathy. It's just like, you know, that person is in distress. They're pissed off. Are you going to show up for them or not? And if you're not, that'll be the end of that relationship, right? Like if you're just the friend who's only there in good times, then you're not the friend. You're just opportunistic and you just want what you want. The guy who's with you when you have nothing and was vouching for you from the beginning, those are your soulmates. Those are the people you take with you for life. And though that's a small group, right? As you get older, you notice that a lot of the people that you thought were your friends are not your friends, because when it all goes down and you have nothing, who's going to pick you up on the side of the road at 2 a.m.? You know, only the people that love you and care about you and are super empathetic to you and want to do right by you. So I try to, so those are our 5 pillars that we live and die by. It took us a while to really iron those out, but that is who we are as a culture. And we reward people on those pillars. That's another great thing that of something I can give you that's tangible.
Huh.
We have an app. So I went on this journey of like, because I don't know if you use Slack, but like everyone uses Slack, right? So I'll tell you this little hack that we figured out. I was thinking about like, how can I wish I could tip people in the organization on Slack. Like I wish I could see a comment that I loved and click on it and hold it. And then a little thing comes up and says, do you want to tip them a Starbucks or whatever? Like that's what I had in my head. Like, does that exist? And
Beautiful.
so it didn't exist. But I went on this journey of trying to figure out how to either make it myself or find an app that filled that void. And I found an app. It's called Kudos. Or no, it's called Matter. I think it's matter.com. And what it is, it's genius. And this was a game changer for us. So once I rolled it out and I told people about it, I'm like, listen, guys, you're going to get 250 True Classic coins a week to spend on each other. And every time someone exemplifies creative, leading with empathy, going fast, moving the needle, you're going to get coins for that, right? So everyone gets a baseline of coins to give out to each other every week, and they replenish when you give them out. So you're forced to give them out and create goodness for people. So people, what they'll do is they'll say like, Sharon, you are leading with empathy, and here's 50 coins, and you can redeem those coins for anything. Amazon, Sephora, Starbucks, Uber Eats, you name it. It's integrated into all these different partners. And so it was a game changer, because then what it does is it keeps pushing forward our pillars and showing people that we really live and die by these pillars. And now you can reward each other with these pillars. So what a game changer, and what a motivator for people to feel heard and to feel like people are actually listening, and showing them that like, great job at doing this thing that stood on top of this pillar, and you should be rewarded for that. And you're going to be able to turn that into real cash. Like, that's not just like, hey, I got some cool coins and congratulations digitally. It's like, no, you can convert that to cash. So we basically set like a certain budget aside for the year that we were going to invest in this. And I've been going overboard because I have like unlimited coins. So sometimes I'll just like spray thousands of coins. It's hilarious. And but it's so much fun. It's so much fun to just sit around and reward people for just doing great things, instead of just like, hey, great job, you did good. It's like, no. Great job. Here's some extra cash. Go do whatever you want this weekend with it. And just unbelievable job. And everyone gets to see it too. So everyone shares in the excitement. Everyone's clapping. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's like, yay, you led with empathy. That's great.
Cool.
And so it's so much fun. So I would definitely dig into that app if you can with your team, and start wielding those Kudo coins. They're a lot of fun.
How long have you been doing that?
Not that long, probably like 6 months, maybe.
So cool.
6 months. Yeah, it was one of the best apps I had found to that date. It was so perfect that they already built that system. I was just in, and when the second I told Ben, it just blew his mind. He was so excited about it, and the team just adopted it so quickly, because why wouldn't they? It was great. It was just free money for everyone, and congratulations, and just a phenomenal app. It was one of the best things I did. What's that? Are
you guys all in office?
Most everyone is remote. Ben and I and CC, our executive assistant, are here in the office every day. The product team comes in a couple times a week. Some people come in and out. It's very remote first, though. People are scattered, and we're in Calabasas, so it's not like the most central to everybody. But I would love it if more people came in the office, but we're very mindful that it's far. We don't want people having to feel bad about commuting in. So, but we do like these quarterly all hands meetings, which brings everyone together. Like we just did one yesterday, and it brings everyone together once a quarter. So like, even if you don't come in the office, at least we all get together and have a big party every quarter and get that FaceTime.
That's great. That's great. Wow. Okay, now I'll stop this there. Oh, though I could keep going. I will stop us there. Thank you so much. This is really,
you're welcome.
This brings me so much joy talking to founders like yourself. I cannot even tell you. It just
I'm so glad.
because great to hear your story, and like to be able to share it to other people. People are going to love it. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I just appreciate the platform and you giving me some time to talk about it. It's a lot of fun.
good. I will.